16.
16.
And I began looking at the Millennium Hotel and wondering, how could you get these holes in the windows when the leaves weren't blown off the tree? And the front of the block adjacent to the Millennium is that police car that's upside down in figure 12. So you have cars upside down, trees covered with leaves, holes in windows, and there's few, if any, projectiles. And as I say, no stab wounds in the building that we see. There's nothing that seemed to have broken the windows. And in figure 19, if you click on that, it'll expand into a larger picture. And you can see that there's round holes in the windows. Oops. Don't know what I did there. And figure 20A, and there's some blow-ups in 20B and C, that's the World Financial Center building too. And you notice all the windows, just about, in the lower portion are missing. Why are the windows missing? And there's no apparent damage to the facade of the building. Just windows missing. So the description that I read of the Hutchison effect, saying you had to have either disruption or lift, I can see that phenomena in what I see at the World Trade Center. Kind of interesting. And one explanation is that it has to do with the Casimir force. That's the force that holds the molecules together. If you could reverse that, they would repel each other. And what actually first brought me to the Hutchison effect was looking at the towers exploding, or whatever they're doing, and it reminded me of water turning into steam. When water turns into steam, it expands in volume by a factor of 1,600 times. And it looked like the material of the building was suddenly, every molecule was repelling itself into a larger volume. The steel that was flying through the air was shooting out into a dust cloud, and very little steel hit the ground. It all turned into dust. So this is one explanation that makes sense.
So what you're saying, just to restate it, is that you went back to the event and you collected a sample of photos and you reframed them and you looked at them from a different perspective and said, gee, looking at these effects, it looks like these effects look more like the Hutchison effect than a typical explosion from thermite or from fire or from planes hitting a building or from any of the other conventional explanations.
Yes, actually what I did was look at what happened, look at the evidence. I didn't concern myself with an explanation for how it happened.
I see.
Just looking at all the photographs and categorizing the different phenomena. And the one that really caught my attention was that the building looked like water when it turns into steam. It suddenly, all the molecules were repelling each other.
Right. So it's what you're saying is a change of state.
Yes. Yes.
There was a fundamental change of state, and you want to call it molecular dissociation, which is a change of state.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the dirt series, which you can also get to from the main page, that's where I was looking at the nature of the dust, and what really hit me with that is the dust settles out of the air fairly quickly, upwind from the World Trade Center. You have a clear blue sky, and you have dust settling out on the ground. And then pretty soon you notice this very fine powder rising up. that fine powder could not have settled out of the air that quickly. What it tells me is that coarse dust landed and continued to break down into finer dust and finer dust, which means that the molecules had to be repelling each other, continuing to break down.
Right.
And when I discovered this article on John's blog about the Casimir force, wow, that was the first time I saw an explanation that made sense to it all.
Right. John, how do you interpret what Judy just described herself discovering? How do you see your work fitting into this?
Well, under observations over many years of my work, there's similarities to Judy's observations, where we have metal samples that will turn white or basically turn into like a puff of steam. Over many, many years has been documented either by the U.S. government or Canadian government or by other aerospace firms. So there are, what she's presenting to me, I can see it on a smaller scale on my work. And it is intriguing. I mean, I understand engineering myself and what goes on. But the idea of all that white dust and that is quite intriguing. The water, the cold fires, which we experienced so many times in these tests. Plus the fact we were working with Black Ops, with the government, and my bosses said, well, we gave it away to them way back in 1993. Now, I understand what directed weapons can do. I have many, many cubic yards of documents on this, what they were working on during the Star Wars program. It was incredible amounts of unique things and very exotic things that they can do. They can manufacture antimatter. They can use particle beams, EMP weapons, railguns, trillion watt laser pulse units. That's it. And it's very interesting stuff. So she's correlating what I'm doing, and that's an interesting. What raises one big question: who slams all of this into dust?
I mean, who were the actors?
Who are the actors in this?
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
on conventional news, okay, it's been brought up a few times way back in the 80s, where there was concern of these cold hole explosions in the atmosphere, and nobody knew where this was coming from. That there was these huge, gigantic radio clouds being formed in the atmosphere, and this is unconventional news. And that was brought to my attention that Tom Bearden, Lieutenant Colonel Tom Bearden, who worked at Redstone Nuclear Labs, made an explanation on it. But much later on, the U.S. Army intelligence people would use Geiger counters to detect scalar waves that were formed in my experiments, as well as